Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk, your home for betting tips and analysis. If you're looking for any particular bets that in a variety of sports, whether it be boxing, horse racing, football, other sports as well, and you want to read up on where the odds are going, where the value is, please do check them out in the link in the description of this video. Paul, good to be joined by you as always. It's the night after the night before. It's between Nick Ball and TJ Dehenny. Saw Nick Ball, arguably controversial circumstances, but yeah, in the end won via stoppage at the end of the 10th round against the Irishman to retain his world title. In this video, we're just going to be kind of asking, is Nick Ball um Britain's best fighter? Is he pound for pound number one on these shores, and is he the best fighter the UK has to offer? Paul, we'll start off comparing Nick Ball to the other kind of male world champion, Daniel Dubois. Dubois obviously was supposed to be in action against Joseph Parker last month. All saw what happened last year against Anthony Joshua, wins against Jarrell Miller, which was, I think it was the slight favourite in, and then beating Filip Hrgović, another fight which he was the underdog in. Arguably, kind of it's between those two, maybe. See what you have to say. But yeah, who in your opinion is Britain's pound for pound number one out of those two?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think if you're looking at it currently, going on what this day right now, it's between those two because if you're talking about pound for pound, it's a completely different argument than like greatest of all time and all that there. Pound for pound is obviously very current. So with those two, Ball and Daniel Dubois being the two world champions, as you say, it kind of has to be between the two of them, doesn't it? Um, Then it's a kind of a question. Once you kind of put it down to those two, I suppose it's a question of body of work, really, who they've beaten so far. So in that respect, I can make more of a case for Daniel Dubois because he's beaten Anthony Joshua, who we might come on to later, and obviously went on that run, as you said, Miller, Hrgović. You look at Nick Ball's run, obviously no defeats on there. The one blemish, so to speak, was a draw against the legitimate world champion. He then took the belt off a champion. It wasn't like he fought for a vacant title or anything. So then you could caveat that by saying, did did Daniel Dubois actually beat a champion to become the champion? He won a vacant title, didn't he? Or was upgraded to the full champion. So is that an argument as well? You could probably argue back and forth. And to be honest with you, mate, you can really make a case for both, in my opinion. I would edge to Daniel Dubois at the minute, just particularly because of the Joshua victory last time out.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I think there's a variety of factors to look at. I just think another factor is Dubois kind of hasn't. We're now in a period where Dubois, because of dropping out against Joseph Parker, he hasn't been too active. Obviously, hasn't fought since September now. We don't know when he's next going to fight. Whereas Nick Ball is kind of fought in October, fought again in March, and both win those fights by stoppage. But then again, Nick Ball, yeah, as you said, he's got a recent blemish on his records. Um, so it's tricky. It's a tricky question, isn't it? They're the kind of the two male world champions that we're kind of analyzing. I think most people have those guys one or two, but we're going to kind of talk about another couple of names now as well. You mentioned Anthony Joshua. I think it would be disrespectful not to still have him in the conversation if you consider what he's achieved in his career. Um, can you see Joshua getting back to the top, Paul? At one point, he was pound for pound Britain's number one fighter. He was Britain's most well-known fighter by a country mile as well for a long period of time. Um, we don't know who Joshua's going to fight next. We don't know when he's next going to be in the ring. But yeah, I think it's likely he's going to be up against the top heavyweight contender. Can you see him getting back into that conversation this year?
Um, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Suppose in terms of from a British standpoint, yeah, I do because like say for example the Dubois. I mean, don't think it's very likely now, but say the Dubois rematch got made and Joshua won the rematch. Do you put him back at the number one? Do you? You probably do. Um, so that's probably the only case that you could make for him to suppose get back to the top of the British pound for pound rankings. If he was to beat a Joseph Parker, who he's already beaten, or I don't know, some other top heavyweight contender, um, do you can you make a case for him being, if Daniel Dubois remains undefeated or whatever, can you put him above Dubois again? Probably not at this moment in time. The only way I think you could have Joshua leapfrog Dubois as the Britain's number one pound for pound would be if he beat him in a rematch. For me personally, mate.
Yeah, yeah. And it's ifs and buts because obviously, look, Dubois. It looks like Dubois is going to face Usyk next. Usyk's the favorite in that fight. If Usyk was to win that fight and Dubois loses, then I mean we're pretty then very slim on male world champions in this country. But then you kind of got to ask the question who comes back, who could come back into the picture. And I think Anthony Joshua is one of those names, but we'll see. There's a big question mark over Joshua because is the Fury fight finally going to happen? Who is Joshua actually going to face? How many more fights is he planning on having? Lots of question marks over Anthony Joshua's career at the moment. Final name I'll throw at you, Paul. Jack Catterall. Interesting one here. Catterall only really one legitimate loss on his record, you could say, in his last fight against Arnold Barboza. A fight that was actually very close as well. You'd think most people would accept he lost the fight, but it was a close fight. Um, if I know we're kind of saying ifs and buts in a lot in this video. If Catterall had beaten Barboza, would you have him kind of second or even first in these mythical rankings that we're talking about? Would you have him third? Where would your head be at?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to pinpoint and say where I would have him because of that loss and because of how recent it was. But he still didn't have a world title. If he was to beat Barboza, he would have then obviously got the Lopez fight for which is happening in May. So you think if he had to beat Lopez, maybe he probably would have put him third or fourth. These four that we have mentioned, I think they are, by my opinion, the top four. If he had have beaten Barboza, would he? Could you make an argument? I think you maybe have to still have him behind the two world champions personally. But could you make an argument that on current form he would have been ahead of Joshua if he had have beaten Arnold Barboza? You maybe could, yeah, because Joshua obviously losing his last fight. As you said, if Catterall had have won that fight against Barboza, many people's eyes, he's still an undefeated fighter. So yeah, I think as you said a few times, and as we said a few times, this is all hypothetical. It's all if buts and maybes. But yeah, I would maybe would have put him third. I don't think I could have put him ahead of the two world champions just because he still didn't have a belt for me. But yeah, I could definitely have seen him third. But for me right now, I would rank him fourth.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. I think Jack Catterall, another one. I know he's made noises about kind of wanting to get another fight date locked in. I think he'll be back in the ring. Kind of July, August time would be my prediction, and hopefully against another top contender because that's what he's been doing. I personally think if Catterall had beaten Barboza, I think you'd have people, regardless of him not having a world title, saying, right, he's beaten Barboza, Josh Taylor in the rematch, Regis Prograis. He's Britain's pound for pound best fighter. But he didn't beat Barboza, so people aren't saying that. But we'll see. Jack Catterall, another contender. Paul, thank you for joining me as always. Really appreciate your time. If you're watching this video, let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you agree with us, disagree with us. Feel free to abuse Paul as much as you want. And and we'll see what happens. This is a never-changing landscape in Britain or just in the world in general. But we'll see what happens over the next few months. Paul, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Cheers, mate. All the best.